Hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to dive into a few various pieces of Halo lore and look at exactly what it feels like to be infected by the Flood. The pain, the emotions, the mental distress, all of it. So sit back and get ready to experience what it truly feels like to become one with the Halo universe's most ominous enemy. So the first major aspect of Flood infection that's worth noting is that not only is it a physically torturous process, it's also extremely mentally torturous. Along with having your body twisted and broken to fit the Flood's needs, your memories are also harvested to further the Flood's intelligence. But more on that later. We're going to start off today with the physical pain caused by infection. So right off the bat, if you're infected by an infection form, the combination of its tendrils piercing your neck and spinal cord, and then you simultaneously trying to wrestle it off of you, must be excruciating, but this barely holds a light to the actual process of mutation. If you're unsuccessful at wrestling that little bastard off of you, then you're in for one painful experience. As the Flood supercell begins to be injected into your system, it converts your cells into Flood cells, which causes the rapid decomposition of your flesh, turning you from a healthy being into a walking pile of rotten flesh. As the Flood cells take over your body, they also begin to utilize your limbs for their own need. Now, contrary to popular belief, humans aren't just turned into combat forms. They can also be turned into carrier forms too, depending on the situation, and hell, they can even become hybrids of combat forms and carrier forms if the Flood need that to happen, but again, more on that later. When being converted into a combat form, the host goes through an extremely painful transition, where their bones are snapped, skin torn, and arteries burst to create that iconic Flood whip. Much like a certain alien from another sci-fi franchise, the infection form burrows itself into the host's chest, and organs are moved and or broken down to make space for it. The neck is also usually snapped to fit the infection form, which leaves the head dangling down the victim's torso. Along with the internal organs, all other forms of biomass digested by the Flood cells are repurposed, mostly as the mounds of sort of rotten flesh that you can see growing off the combat form, but also sometimes for things like the Flood whip, which are maybe longer than the limb that they replaced. For victims to be instead turned into carrier forms, their bodies have to be too frail, weak, or damaged to become a combat form, and a disturbing transformation occurs that we don't know too much about, but from what we can see, comparing the size and shape of a human body to a carrier form, you can imagine that maybe the torso or the upper body expands out and all the internal organs get repurposed to make space for the incubation of infection forms. It's just a really disturbing process that I'm actually kind of happy we don't know the details of. For that sort of hybrid combat carrier form that I touched on earlier, a sac that incubates the infection forms grows on the victim's back, and it can explode at will like a regular carrier form, but without killing the combat form, allowing it to continue carrying out behaviours typical of the form, which really does make it an absolute bastard to fight. The worst thing about all of this is that most of it usually happens when the victim is still alive and conscious. In fact, the infection form quite literally keeps the host alive during this excruciating procedure by chemically isolating the host's dying brain, preventing it from contacting the other parts of the body to inform them that the host is dead. This has a specific use that we're going to touch on later. However, this process of infection doesn't always go as planned. Infection forms aren't robots. Sometimes they fail their job due to various factors. In the unfortunate case of Private Wallace Jenkins, the infection form that converted him was incredibly old and partially failed its job in the most agonizing way. Jenkins was fully converted into a combat form, but he never died, and even as a combat form, he retained partial control over his body. Whenever the infection form was injured, he was able to control himself and, to a degree, communicate with other humans, but the rest of the time, all he could do was just sit back and watch as this foreign parasite controlled his body. During the brief periods of control that he got, he tried to kill himself, but whenever he got close to it, the infection form would regain control and keep him in this disturbing state of limbo. This terrifying instance of infection feeds into the second form of torture that a victim undergoes when being infected by the Flood, the mental torture. As well as inflicting severe physical pain, the mental state of the host is also attacked. We've already touched on how the parasite subverts the death signals emitted by the brain to the rest of the body to keep the host alive during infection, but it goes far, far deeper than that. During the painful process of mutation, the parasite also sifts through the host's memories, searching for any knowledge that could help buff the Flood and help them expand. Information and knowledge are as important to the Flood's growth as biomass, and this can sometimes lead to hosts not being used as combat forms or carrier forms, but instead being entirely merged with a Proto-Gravemind to provide it with raw, expansive knowledge that it needs to expand and ultimately become a fully fledged sentient Gravemind. This happened in the terrifying case of Captain Keyes. When searching through the memories of their victims, the Flood are able to identify those with a wealth of knowledge or with a specific type of knowledge that they require, and then give them sort of special treatment when choosing what to do with them. Because of Keyes' unique role within the UNSC and his extensive knowledge of spacecraft and alien tech, he became part of the Proto-Gravemind, so the Flood could attempt to extract the knowledge required to pilot Covenant ships, with the ultimate goal of commandeering the Truth and Reconciliation to escape the Ring and infect the galaxy. They violated Keyes' mind, invading his most private memories and tried to make him forget those of his daughter, Miranda, and his lover, Halsey, two things he held incredibly dear, offering a dark reminder that he'd never see them again. He did, however, put up an extremely strong fight against the invading parasite, and for the longest time managed to withhold information from it in a mental battle, utilizing what remained of his fortitude. He repetitively fed the Flood unimportant information like his name, date of birth, and service number to stop them from finding Earth through his memories, or the knowledge to pilot a Covenant cruiser, all while being distressingly violated, both psychologically and physically. Eventually, however, Keyes ran out of energy and succumbed to the parasite, and was killed by Chief when he retrieved his neural implant. What happened to Keyes, both mentally and physically, accurately portrays the terrifying reality of Flood infection. It's not just like any old zombie virus, where the victim gets infected, falls sick, and then turns. It can be a shorter, yet far more excruciating process of snapping limbs, tearing skin, and bursting arteries. Or it can be a far longer process of extreme physical and psychological torture, where you're teased with the things that you hold most dear in life, before having them torn away with the most dire of consequences. And I think that should just about cover the true extent of both the physical and mental agony that victims undergo during Flood infection. It really is a torturous process that can't exactly be shown to its fullest extent in the games, for both practical and, of course, age rating reasons, but in the books, everything's fair game, which is why Halo the Flood is one of the most disturbing books in many ways, because it goes through the torturous process that both Jenkins and Keyes went through when they got infected by the Flood. Really is quite a terrifying experience. So, thanks for watching, guys. I'm back home from PAX now, and I'm trying to adjust to the 8-hour jet lag, but videos, don't worry, are going to continue as normal. To everybody that I met at PAX, I just want to say thank you for being so cool. It's still all so surreal to me, so you guys being so chill about it really does help a lot. I appreciate it. I've got a video coming out, probably like this next weekend sometime, about my trip to 343, and also a video coming out sometime after that about my adventures at PAX. They'll be out over the next few weeks, so just keep an eye on the channel for those, and also keep an eye on the channel very soon for the official HiddenXperia merch. I'm really happy with how they turned out. You guys seem to like them, so they'll be releasing soon. Just make sure you keep an eye on the channel for that. Thank you so much to all my patrons for the continued support: Ardent, Tomahawk, Evan, Momo, Shikata, Mjolnir, Matthew, Pierre, Tony, Ben, Jim, Jack Madden, Eric Brown, Sam Grafton, Bruin98, and Hayden Woods. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed some more Flood content. You know, Flood stuff never gets old, and I'll catch you in the next one.